wanted to emphasize skills is that they're so important when you do service learning, not to take them lightly. And if you want listening to be a part of the service learning process, then you have to deepen the understanding what listening is and help students work on it and revisit it again and again so they can really strengthen that. And it's a transferable skill to other classes. All right? So now what we're going to look at is back to the service learning process. And we're going to invite you in to develop curriculum on the topic you picked. Right. Yeah, you're really going to do that right now. Is everybody ready? All right. To start with, we want you to have a spark. So on your table are books and newspaper articles. We'd like you to take a few minutes, about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, to look at them, talk about them with your peers, see what you see, pick up a book, an article, what's there that you can use with students to spark their curiosity. Grab a book, just get out. All right, so I'm going to ask a question. So how can newspaper articles or books get people engaged and interested in a topic? Why might that be part of the spark we use? Skip this slide, hold on. Why do we have newspaper articles and books? Why can they be helpful? Anybody have a thought? They're not the only way to spark curiosity, but they are a great way, one great way. Yes?
They tell stories, and stories are the lens through which we see and live our lives and how we connect to other people.
Beautifully stated. Yes?
It's relevant and authentic.
Right. Newspapers especially are right now, and I don't think we put them in the hands of people enough, like our own hands or even students' hands. And I know we can see them online, but there's something about holding that newspaper and the newsprint and the smell of it and the sight of it, and finding articles is really a key way to get kids curious about going deeper and learning more. Yes?
I was just going to say you have to be reading stuff anyway for English classes, teaching kids how to read, you might as well be reading something impactful.
Exactly. And there's so many. If you do not have a copy of the Complete Guide to Service Learning, one of the best parts of it is every thematic chapter. There's a chapter on hunger, and on poverty, on environment, on emergency readiness. Each of the 13 thematic chapters has an annotated bibliography of fiction, nonfiction, and picture books, because it's critical to get books in the hands of our own hands and those of students as a way to spark learning, curiosity, and this depth of knowledge. All right. Yes?
I was just going to say that as one of the library teachers here at our Poly, we have our teachers that work with grades 3 to 5, and the third grade teachers, one of our groups is homeless, and so we work on books that are whether fiction or nonfiction, and it's coming with them. Which, when they got into me, yeah, it has to come with them. Which is a nice way to start.
And one of the other reasons that I want books in the hands of kids, especially picture books in high school kids, is so, aren't they the best for high school kids to read? You can read it out loud much faster than War and Peace, you really can. And it can incite you to write your own books about sickle cell anemia to help other people know about it. Because we need books on all these topics you're thinking about, including systemic change and how to get there. You know, the stories you're hearing from immigrants, these are all possible picture books waiting to happen. All right, so now we're going to get you into your curriculum piece, and what you're going to do is mess up your tables. What I'm going to ask you to do is at your tables, you're going to draw the circles that we talked about. I'm going to bring it back up again so you see it. You're going to make this happen on your table. I'm most interested today in the inner circle, not the reflection demonstration on the outside. We're not going to get to that today. But we'd like you to make the circle that says curriculum in the middle on your easel paper. You need to move things around. Everyone has a marker. You have a marker in your hand. You need a circle in the middle that has your topic. So 3 tables will say poverty in the curriculum circle. 3 will say environment. 2 will say literacy, and 1 will say immigration. And then we have 3 circles: investigation, preparation, action. You make that happen on your paper. All right. Here's what I want to do to start. We've already been sparked a little bit by the books, the newspaper articles, and what I'd like you to do is take a moment to narrow your topic just a little bit. Environment's a pretty big topic, as is poverty, as is literacy, and as is immigration. So, what I'm going to invite you to do in 1 minute, and that's why I love everybody to have a marker in their hand. This is going to get wild. If you don't have a marker, I've got an extra one here. So what I'd like you to do is in the circle that says poverty, where it says curriculum, write all the issues that matter to you related to this topic. All right, thank you. Now what you get to do is I'm giving you 1 more minute to now pick a topic within there that you're going to focus on for the next 45 minutes. You're not getting married to it, so it's not like a major commitment here. But rather than work on poverty in general, you might work on healthcare education or social class. In immigration, you might decide you want to work on children and immigrants. Whatever, pick one sub-theme and circle it, so you just narrow your scope just enough that we can dive into it. Everybody good with that? Okay, now I'm going to ask your attention again, and I know I'm moving quickly. My apologies for that. I'm going to ask each table to tell us your topic so we just know what's buzzing in the room. So this back table, what's your topic?
Literacy, but we're going to focus on whether the parents have the ability and the time to reach their children.
Perfect. Reading to children. Family reading time. This topic.
Literacy access.
Literacy access. Immigration, what's your topic? Families. Very relevant. And poverty, what's your subtopic? Education and related to poverty. This section on poverty. Impact on youth. And this table. It can be the same, it doesn't matter. What's your topic?
I don't know, effects that it has on kids in school.
Kids in school, great. Environment table, what are you focusing on?
Ecological footprint.
Ecological
Footprint.
footprint, thank you. This table.
Water. Water.
Water, favorite topic of mine, yes.
Agricultural sustainability.
Sustainability. Yes?
Agricultural.
Oh, agricultural sustainability. Oh, that. Wonderful, good topics. And now we're going to look at is Marissa's going to give you a quick reminder and overview of how we're thinking about investigation and what it really means. So Marissa, now I'm going to just tell you what I skipped. Normally I would have your group talk about your personal interest, skills, and talents you bring to the table. Time-wise, I'm going to have to drop that right now. We know that's important in service learning. We've talked about it. We talked about literature, and now take the clicker.
So I'm really happy to be here supporting Kathy today. A long time ago, I was a 2nd grade teacher and came as just a member of ECSL and got to hear from Kathy as one of the advisors. And she, through a lot of this type of instruction and these type of workshops, and amidst many of the other advisors that helped, I got to really change my classroom culture. And so now I've left the classroom, but this is still a really important thing to me, so important that I'm here to support anybody that's touting service learning as a methodology in the classroom. What Kathy was just describing is that we're always trying to keep the experience student-centered. And she mentioned that we're skipping over the section of talking about the personal inventory and how do we tap into interest, skills, and talents. But in the investigation stage, that's also really important as well. That in order to keep it student-centered, we start where the students are at. So when we begin to investigate, how would we find out about where the students are at within a certain topic? What would we do? Survey, ask. Yeah, you guys are tapping into it. Is that we wouldn't necessarily start by diving in with tons and tons and tons of resources. You might start with a few for a spark that Kathy was talking about, but then you'd want to take a pause, and instead of just filling in all the information, you would want to find out from them, what are their questions? And it's because we know it's basically good teaching. It goes back to that basic KWL. What do you know? What do you want to know? And then, what did you learn? So by asking questions of our students and investigating what they're curious about, we are finding out a little bit more about what they know about that topic. So what we want to have you do first, before investigating the issue, we want to investigate what are your questions. So we're going to invite everybody to take a Post-it note and to write down one per Post-it note, just a few questions, 1 or 2, of what are you thinking about around this topic? What are you curious about? What's on your mind that you would want to find out about? So then, keeping it student-centered, you're going to ask your students, how are we going to find out the answers to our questions? And what are they probably going to say? How are we going to research about the answer to these questions? What's something that they might think of off the top of their head? How are we going to find out these answers? Google. But research does not equal Google. because Google is a search engine, not a research engine. And so we know that there are a lot more active ways to get them involved in finding out the answers to their questions. And so authentic action research can come in many different forms, and we're going to go over them today. The first is media. That's something that we already had some experience with today. We were looking at books, we were looking at newspaper articles. Of course, there is the internet, but consider keeping in mind something hard copy never hurts. Oh, and don't forget about other forms of media like video footage and things like that. Next comes interviews, face-to-face interaction with people. There's a direct form, we know there's a direct form of action, there's also a direct form of investigation, and that's getting someone face-to-face and interviewing them, whether it's a client of an organization, or it might be somebody from, a representative from a community organization that's boots on the ground working on that issue. Next, we also have, well, before it comes up, anybody want to say, what is another form of action research that we can do?
It starts with an S. It's MISO, M-I-S-O. What starts with S?
Survey.
Survey. Except it doesn't want to come. Surveys is a way. Finding out answers to your questions by asking more questions. And last but not least, O is observation and experience. And put together, the 4 steps of action research are media, interviews, surveys, observation, and experiences. And that is MISO, like a good miso soup. There are a lot of components inside.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're really getting a lot of knowledge. We have how many stages of service learning? 5. How many kinds of action? 4. And what kind of research do we do? MISO. Yay, you've got this. All right, you can lead this next time. All right, so it's real important when we think about this whole idea of using Google as our sole form of research. I just want to mention one other thing. That there's a quote that's from the 1930s that says, if you copy from one person, it's research, it's plagiarism. Everybody knows that, right? If you copy from one person, it's plagiarism. If you copy from 2, it's research. But if you do action research, this actually will be what real research is about. So what we're going to have you do now is we're going to have you start building the investigation circle on your page. And this is what we'd like you to do. So I'm going to just show you a couple of the examples of what we're looking forward to when we do this level of curriculum development. I'm going to just show you some of these filled out. And often with 30 minutes in tow what they did. This is one that was done in Baku. The first time I did this with teachers, I gave them a little mini workshop on service learning. They went off and they brought this back. They really looked at investigation. They had their questions there. They looked at preparation, ways to take action. They articulated all of this. This was just done in November in Shanghai. This was for younger kids. But you can see under investigation, you see how the word MISO is written out there? So they looked at, so for each one, they looked at what is a key question they could use for each of these. So for media, what do superheroes look like? For I, how do you know someone is a superhero? Survey, are there superheroes in your life? And what are their characteristics? You would survey people. And O, observe friends and family and find their superhero traits. You see how that works? Want to see that? Isn't that cool how they made it so gorgeous? Like, oh my gosh. This was just recently in January when I was working in the New York Department of Education. This is waste in our environment. Wow, they did a wow also. They put their questions in the middle, and then they did on the left, they looked at the different media you can use, interviews, survey, and observation. Also want to point out maps are a great form of media. I love using maps in media. All right, so they looked at the questions, what's in our garbage, and they looked at how they can use these different resources. All right? Those of you students who are developing curriculum, this is all really helpful for you to build in. Here's another one from New York. They were doing LGBTQ issues, and again, they used the MISO method as their way to hone their questions, and another one with that. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is in your circle on investigation, I'd like you to write down MISO, M-I-S-O, and to figure out which question you're going to ask, of your questions that you've got there. Take a minute to see which one would do well with media, which would be good for interview, which is for survey, which for observation. So you can start mapping out how kids can learn beyond Googling it. All right, let me have your attention. It's a very good question. Right now, in this setting, you are the students. and you're writing down your questions. When you do this with your students, whose questions are you going to be listening to? Theirs. And you can always add yours as another question on a post-it, so it joins the mix of questions. But you will get student-appropriate questions of what they're curious about by the nature of letting them write anonymous questions on small slips of paper. And everyone, how many kids are involved when everybody has a post-it and a pen? How many kids are involved? Everyone. So you get 100% participation. I've seen students write so many more questions than they would if they'd been called on to give them verbally. Because they can write them, they can add them, they keep writing them, they keep writing them because they have questions that are now bubbling out. Plus they read someone else's question, that sparks another question. That's why some of you are going to discussion and you stop writing, but the minute someone says something, capture it. Keep writing and building. And then the next thing I want you to do, just for another 2 minutes, is see, are you finding any resources that could help you with investigation? Is there a community group you know of? Who could you survey? Take 2 minutes to build out investigation, then I'm going to have you move to preparation. Start thinking about what else you want to do for investigation. Just take 2 more minutes and fill in what are you going to use maps? You can use people. Who do you know? Think about it. Start building it out. All right. So, what was your learning by learning the MISO method and doing it this way? What was your learning, your takeaway from doing this? What did you learn by doing it? Yes?
That there's a lot of room for interpretation as to where the best place is to answer these questions.
So there's a lot of room to interpret what would be the best way to do it. And some questions you want to pull out and do it multiple ways. Like, let's do it this way and compare. Or let's do all 4 ways. I've done this hundreds of times. Only one time did I have a student come up to me in tears because someone told her it was a bad question. Only one time. I was actually excited by it. I saw it as an opportunity to see what I was going to do next because I had no expectation of that. And I was able to educate the whole room about it. It was actually a table that their topic was racism, and a girl had written on. They were all 6th graders, so you know what that's like. And her question was, "What is racism?" So I walked over to the table holding the post-it, and I asked the group, and I could tell the kid who told her a question was stupid without even, you could just tell. And I walked over and said, "What makes this the best question of all?" And that kid's face went like, "Huh?" And why do you need to say what is racism before you even go further? You need to know what you're talking about. Can you even come up with it? So we need fundamental, what they call naive questions to really start building your knowing. That's called actually a naive question. It's the best kind. And I was able to have a whole class discussion about it without making anybody feel terrible. But it was a useful moment for me to see what we need to do in those moments. And I don't find that's a learning opportunity. But MISO has helped students deconstruct how research happens, rather than just go to Google. You cannot Google life. And if you worked at Google, you couldn't Google it. Just think about that for a moment. So these 4 methods will help you all the way through university. For those students going to college soon, I helped my daughter get straight A's on every paper in college. See me afterwards, I'll tell you how good it really did. I know, I'm not joking. All right, so what I'd like you to do next is I'm going to give you literally a minute, I'm sorry, to think of if you did this kind of research, we're jumping ahead, what kind of need might you find? Can you identify a maybe possible, I think we might find this is a need. Can you do that at your table? I know you're being presumptive because you haven't done the research, but can you just make a jump, because we're in a workshop setting, and say, we might find this kind of need. So come up with that in 1 minute. Can you come up with the need? Go for it. So I'm going to call on a few groups to tell me the need you're imagining. Now, it's always an imagined need, because when you do this with students, they will come up with their own needs. Now, some of the materials that I've been able to put out at your tables could be very helpful. There is, for example, this publication here called Hunger and Homelessness, Kids Guide to Hunger and Homelessness. There's another one on climate change and global warming in the environment section, and there's also one on helping others read and succeed. These are great resources you can download for free. It's listed on that paper from Donna that shows you the back of the agenda. Shows you how to download these 3 workbooks for free. When I wrote these and when it went out of print, my publisher said, let's just give them away. I was very excited. So these have examples of what young people have been doing, which is another way to inspire students. Kids are doing this for real. Just like I was so inspired by what I'm hearing the students up here earlier were talking about, what they were really doing. So we could draw from real youth's experience. That's really good. So I'd like to hear what's an imagined need that one of the tables came up with. Who came up with a need for their table? How about that back group on environment? What was the need you came up with?
Age-appropriate materials.
For learning about the topic.
Yeah.
Right, and students could create those. They're the best ones to create that for other students. What's the need you found at another table? Somebody tell me another need. Yes?
You said a diverse representation in books. We're talking about access.
Right, so more equitable array of books that really have a better story to tell about people they can relate to on the page. Francisco Jimenez, who's a wonderful writer, who came from Mexico. He was an illegal immigrant to this country. He wrote the book La Mariposa, which is on one of your tables, and a series of books about being an immigrant. And because he said there were no books that saw him that he could see on the paper until he read Grapes of Wrath. It was the first time he saw himself on a page. Right? So when students can see themselves on a page, they can relate to text better. And what was the need for this table?
To develop trusting relationships and be able to be open about the migration story and family story.
So a safe place to collect the stories of migrants. Another one talked about a safe space for children who are in challenged situations. Whatever needs you have, this is how the servicing process works. Investigation, you start digging up with your questions and finding the need, but it also should raise more questions. I want you, if you haven't yet, go to the preparation circle. What can you put in there that would help the students now based on that identified need? What depths can you go to? What deeper learning processes can you have? Maybe you're going to do a field trip, partner with an organization, read some more books, do an experiment, read a novel. Whatever you think you're going to do, this is your own teachability coming through all the ways. You maybe read a play or watch a movie. Put in preparation, ways you will continue learning. Use the resources on the table. You've got 4 minutes to fill in your preparation ideas. All right, what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you how you can use some of these materials that you have before you leave. So if you would, in your handout, open up to the page that says discussion circles. So this is a great document to get kids to think after they've either read some materials, seen a video, had a speaker. Have you ever had kids had a conversation and don't know how to have a conversation? Yeah, works with adults too. Okay, so what you do is you have a group of 4. Let's say this is my group of 4. You have them sit away from a table so they're like up close and personal, like in a little square. And one of them is going to be the personal connector. He's going to ask each person a question on what that topic has to do with them. So I would be first, and I'd say, well, that story of poverty touches me because I've got friends who have lived on the streets, right? So each person would make the personal connection, and then he would answer it next. The second person's the topic connector. What did I take away or learn from what we just read or saw or heard? The third person's the service connector. What in this story is being fixed or needs to be fixed? So now we're starting to get in that mindset. And the fourth person is what else do we need to learn about? On the next page is a circle to keep notes. This is an organized way for kids to learn how to have a conversation, listen to each other. Even a child who's shy or introverted can lead a conversation for 4 minutes, especially if you prep them properly. So this is an easy way to get kids conversing and going deeper and sharing knowledge and the personal impact of these stories on their own lives. The next document, gathering information about a community need, is what I use all the time to help get the MISO method alive in my classroom or my group. So let's imagine I was introducing something on what topic? Somebody give me a topic, any topic. Immigration. So if I had a classroom, I would divide you into 4 parts. So one part, I would say finding out about immigration. That's this page, right? And 1/4 of the room, maybe 6 kids, would think of how we could use media to learn more about immigration. Another quarter, who could we interview to learn more about immigration? The third quarter, who could we survey to learn more about immigration? And the fourth, could we do about observation to learn? In 4 minutes, these kids are bouncing out of their seats with ideas, and then you can write them all down, and then you start pulling from what are we going to do from these ideas this year. With younger kids, you just start with one of these ideas at a time. You teach them about media first, then interview, then survey and observation, and as they get older and are familiar with the language, then it becomes more and more robust. And what you like this?
This is so wonderful.
I love her. I'm going to take her with me everywhere and have her pretend to do that over
Why do you
again.
start with media before interview?
It's MISO, M-I-S-O, it's just the order. It's just, you're just thinking of ideas. You don't have to do one first. You might decide there's more. And of those 4 methods, which of those 4 methods do you think students would prefer doing? Of those 4, which? Nope. Interview and what else? Observation. Why do they always prefer interviews and observation? They're real, they're active. You get to get off the computer fine. You get to meet real people. You get to do stuff. So that's always what they want to do. Now the other document I'm just going to show you is a 3-page document on surveys. 2 of my consultants from New Jersey, at college there, put this together for another program we're doing. This is a wonderful document on surveys and how to set up surveys. You can use it as young as grade 4, you can adapt it for little kids, but this is a 3-page document on how to do surveys. Yay?
Yay.
I know, it's really good. So I didn't do it. The last page is the 4-square reflection tool. So I think we're going to do that 4-square reflection tool right now as a way to just do some reflection, just to do a quick reflection. So if everybody turns to the back page, and at the end we may have a few minutes for questions, or we'll just have just gathering informal time. If you can each take a moment, and you'll see there's a box that says, what happened? What happened for you today? You need to always say what happened so you know what you're reflecting on. So everybody take just a minute, either draw or write in the response of what happened. Just take a minute to draw or write in the what happened box. Say your last page, the back page of this handout. And we can post these on our website so you can download a clean copy. Ready? Move to the box that says, how do you feel? How are you feeling? Did you have one feeling all day? Did you have a range of feelings? What are the emotional content of this day for you today? And then we'll take 1 more minute for ideas and questions. Are there any ideas that are percolating? Any questions that are percolating? Take 1 more minute to finish out this sheet. I'd like to just do a couple of thank you. I'd like to thank Donna, always does an incredible job of guiding us. And Marissa's really helped me think through the process. I mean, she really did. Zara and Clark. And then Renee and the whole team here at Poly.